Hello, my name's Reggie Cornelia. I am here at LTV for the first of more than one show I hope they'll tolerate. I want to thank LTV for giving me this opportunity. And I also want to thank the gentleman who first introduced me to this scene and this activity. He's sitting right here beside me. His name is Haim Mizrahi. So any problems I cause, any failures, you can just point right to my friend here, Haim Mizrahi, who has his own show for how many years now?
This particular was 26.
26, 27.
Yeah, but LTV 38 years altogether.
Yeah, and I've done some, for those of you who've had the patience and tolerance to watch to the show when I'm on it. I've
Those
been
who
on.
love to hate you.
Yes, I got something to mention on that too. When I first appeared on your show, it was, it's got to be 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean your
On your Hello
Yes.
Hello show.
Yes.
And he, unfortunately for LTV, he kept urging me to do this. And even though I consider myself a little old to get started in this, it's been so much fun. And I also have a sort of a serious purpose for getting on the air, and that is not to delve into politics too quickly, but I feel that in this town, in this area in general, the politics of the people who communicate, the newspapers, every facet of communication you can think of is mostly dominated by what I'll call, I used to call them liberals, but I now call them the left, because the left has.
I think you should start by introducing your guest, and then you
I
can.
did, I just did.
Yeah, but like.
But that's why I'm here.
Hello.
But and
Remember, it's hello that you come from.
I said, this is a pleasant relief from that.
Yeah, I know, but
This is the host of the Hello Hello show. And as I predicted, he will be taking over the show shortly.
No, by no means. First, I wanted to say that I'm so happy for you. Really, I'm actually really happy and excited for you. And I had some doubts that because for the longest time you tried very hard, you prevailed, and I see a great future here for you. I mean, when I say future, I mean, public access is a force to be reckoned with, and you know that probably better than me.
Yeah, no, I think it's always fun. You turn on the news, it's all over the place, and it's this guy. You don't know any of the people, but when you turn on LTV and you say, "Hey, I know that guy, I know that guy," and it makes it more personal. It has more impact, even though the impact is obviously not as widespread as some other thing. And I just want to explain one thing that you can probably see here. This box down here is a violin that I bought from the head of LTV, Michael Clark, who's one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever met. And I bought this thing from him probably 12 to 15 years ago. I took lessons briefly, proved to be so inept that my instructor would break out laughing. I would produce sounds that she said she had never heard before. And she just couldn't keep her professional demeanor. She would just break out.
You skipped the part where she pulled her hair.
And she started crying a couple of times, So these sessions became, she was also having trouble with her boyfriend at the time. So these sessions where I'm supposed to be learning the violin became me counseling her. And I said, I'm the last person that should be counseling you about relationships. So I'm paying you to have me advise you about what to do about your wayward boyfriend. And so we stopped, and that's the last time I touched that. But if I had lived my life properly, especially my youth, if I had paid attention in school more often, if I had listened to my own instincts, I would have studied how to play the violin, because I always felt.
But it really is never too late, you know that.
I
know it's a slogan and all this, but it is.
Well, when you have a 10-year like me, believe me.
Yes, yeah. But also, I'm psyched to know what is it that you have in mind as far as your show is concerned. Is it going to be Reggie business as usual, or is it going to be, because people know you so well, and they kind of expecting or anticipating or guessing a certain thing. Is it so? So I think people would benefit knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I don't want to be one-dimensional. I want to be, I just caused a recent kerfuffle in the Star. They wrote a really nasty editorial about identifying me with terrorism, far right-wing extremism. And they even dragged in the word racist into this obscene editorial. So I had to write a letter back, which will appear tomorrow. But I don't want it to be one-dimensional. I don't want it to be all about politics. I have a couple of people lined up whose families have been here since the 1600s. We're going to talk about a thing that I've already titled Bonic Genealogy. I got a couple of, I want to bring on the guys from Soldier Ride because I spent probably, 9 or 10, 11 years very active with the Soldier Ride, and that was
Yeah.
a fantastic experience.
That's why I think the people out there need to be reminded of the multiple tasks that an effort in place and volunteering your time that you did for this community. Also, your vast knowledge of history and just plain, simple, straightforward intelligence, which we need very much. This is your chance to show the people how really intelligent you are.
Maybe can I get you to do the intro to the show every time?
But really, that you can actually, instead of getting caught at the very beginning of this conversation because you're just going to say something that's going to upset everyone in the room, that there is an intelligent person that a serious conversation can take place with.
Well,
that's
I want to be taken seriously. So obviously, I'm not here to throw hand grenades or do name calling and.
But you can if you wanted to. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, if it's called for, but we just want to explain. Like even this month is Black History Month, and I've lined up. Gene Hamilton said he's going to come next week. He just drove up to Maine to go fishing. I said, you're going where it's colder to go fishing, not. I said, he's really gotten into it. He does a lot of fishing.
Yeah.
And he promised to bring me back something or other, something fishy.
Something fishy.
Yeah. So he hopefully will be here next Wednesday. He'll be my guest for next week.
That's great.
So I plan to, and we always I have my little books there that have. It's American history by the day, and some days you'll pick it out and there'll be maybe several momentous events on that day. So we'll do a little history,
Love it.
a little poetry, which is, I believe, it's funny to me that poetry is not more popular in America because Americans are busy. They have 20 activities going on. They're scurrying
because
to and
nobody
from.
bothers to remind them that it's a possibility.
Well, and some of it is because poets today, they sort of like to make things too obscure, although that has a long tradition. I'm still trying to decode Emily Dickinson's. I think she's one of our greatest poets.
Yes, yeah.
But a lot of times I really don't know. I bought a book by a woman named Helen Vendler who attempts to decode Emily Dickinson's poems, which, given how short a lot of them are, you'd think you could really get it. But she's very, very mysterious, very allegorical. She's
Maybe if you will allow me later, I have a short poem that I want to read, and of course we have a poem that is so significant, meaningful, and people will finally get exposed in
with your permission,
in a show other than the Hello show.
Yeah, with your permission, I plan to use that like we did every show. Read that. Because there's never been a better time for a poem called The Land Where Hate Should Die.
Yeah, and even at best, even when we are indulging in the greatest situation possible, it still calls for, just to kind of make sure that we're not complacent,
Meanwhile, I just want to, if you don't already know who Haim is always juggling 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 balls in the air at the same time. He writes poems. He's a painter. He's a musician. He does all kinds of things in addition to having a real job. He actually has to go out and work. And you have how many, 10, 11, 12 kids now?
About.
I'm sure it feels like that at times, but he's got a bunch of kids. So I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And the other thing we obviously have to talk about is, you served in the Israeli army, so I'm sure, pay a lot of attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
And I am just appalled at people who say, stop! Don't keep hitting the people who attacked your country, raped your women, burned little children. What kind of standard is that? they have to do what they're doing. So I want to talk to you about that,
Yeah,
especially because you,
and I can actually just kind of, because you have to remind yourself you have only like 25 minutes here, not
Yeah.
that's like a fraction of what the time we used to have together. But this happened also in 1927 in Hebron, and I read the atrocities, the description of atrocities, which were like just pretty much what happened October 7th. And then even the times of King David, when King David in one of the instances left town and he left with his forces and he was neglected to leave a force that's significant to protect the city. And when he came back, the same scenario happened by the Philistines, they were called.
yeah,
So there's, my reaction to this, I would be horrified whether it happened in Zimbabwe or in Australia or any other place in the world. The extent of that hatred and that and cruelty is the thing that needs to be addressed. Of course, that I feel like this is my people, kind of, and so it hits home. But when I was serving in the Israeli army, we were taught not to hate. We were taught to be resolved, and we said that hate is our biggest enemy because it really takes, it causes you to. You cannot be a good soldier if you hate.
because then you don't
It
have,
just doesn't work.
then you don't have discipline, yeah.
It doesn't work. When you go to the battlefield, your head's got to be literally empty, empty. And there's a certain section that you have a repetitious material of knowledge and experience that you gained in training time. When that kicks in, that takes the entire vacant space in your head. So, I got to be careful also because I really have to be realistic. And realistic is we are in East Hampton now, and there's only that much that we can bring this horror into our immediate vicinity.
Yeah, on the other hand, Haim, Israel only has, what, 7 or 8 million people? And they are completely surrounded by people who are, some of them violently, irrevocably opposed to their mere existence. And others may be willing to tolerate them until the bad guys get the job done. But, so they are especially vulnerable. It's amazing that they're doing what they're doing. That's why I'm going to be a bipartisan bully when it comes to the politics, because the Republicans put a bill up in the House just this week that would have separated the Israeli money out from all the other crap that they're
So it
throwing
won't
in
be
there.
delayed, yes.
So it gets, apparently they are running low on ammunition because the fighting has been going on longer, I think, than most people expected. And it's going to go on as long as it has to go on. But the Republicans put the bill in, and almost all the Republicans voted for it, except for 14 of them. And I'm just wondering, and because the money wasn't, these are fiscally conservative Republicans called the Freedom Caucus. And I largely agree with them, but this was an act of sheer stupidity because it's a relatively small amount compared to the amounts they're talking about for Ukraine and the border and all
Yeah,
that.
and how much Ukraine already got. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, plus the Israelis use most of the money to buy military equipment from
But you
us.
have to understand that this hatred was always there. It is there now, and it will always be there. It's just this kind of hating for the sake of hatred. And there's a thing that goes from the times of the Bible and the way it's written in the Old Testament and all this. It's just almost like what's written in the Old Testament, no matter what it is that you're going to do or not, you're not going to change anything that's supposed to happen. You can only improve the extent of that cruelty. You can you can reduce it a little bit, but the end result and that the act itself per se, there's not much we can do.
Well,
about it.
you mentioned 1927, and there's no doubt, and then there was the 1940s. As soon as Israel became a state, they were attacked. And but today, Haim, the vulnerability is so because of the way the world can communicate today. These terrorist groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, they're interwoven like a basket weaver. They're all intertwined with each other. So in terms of communication, in terms of trade, money, in terms of bodies to do the dirty work, with Iran dumping money in, which is a reason that any Jewish voter who can look at what Biden has done, he gave, and Obama, they gave huge amounts of money to Iran, which enabled them to fund all these groups. I don't understand it. How is that possible? That we give money to the biggest terrorist supporter in the world, and we also give it. The United States taxpayer pays a huge amount of the UN bill for the year. So, and they give a lot of money to Hamas, and
Yeah.
Hamas spends the money on not on infrastructure, not on things for the for the good of the people. They spend it on tunnels and weapons,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
some of that's our money.
But then again, it's like when you find yourself in it and start talking about it, you just realize it's just like empty words, no matter what we say. Remember, read the book of Martin Gilbert. It's called Holocaust. 965
I
pages.
have his trilogy of
Yeah,
world history.
yes, I love it, yeah.
He's a great writer. Yeah.
Yes. Martin Gilbert wrote about Holocaust, and he wrote 965 pages about all the Jews to the first one to the last one that were murdered from 33 to 45. It's 4,400 days of killing. There was no one day. There was no intentional killing in ways that are horrific beyond horrific. I can give you examples that will deprive you from sleeping and from thinking straight. So, yeah, we want to talk about October 7th, and we want to talk about, for that sake, about what is done in Ukraine and how people are just like attacked by this monster, whatever, and so many other things around the world. But you have to understand that you want to refer to the here and now
Excuse me.
more than you think you should. Because especially when you raise kids and all that, and you think about the future, you want to maintain the worthwhileness of the future. Because it's very easy to get caught in a situation where you're thinking, what is it all about? Why should I bother? So your role as a father, as a husband, as a citizen, as a member of the community, as at your workplace, whatever it is, will suffer from it. So you want to think about these details to fortify the chances of the now and the future to survive.
Well,
Plain and simple.
but this is such a special
I
occasion.
know it sounds very cliche.
Well, it is cliched, but it's
but
hard.
it's not.
It's hard to keep that perspective when you're 8 million people surrounded by a sea of people who many of whom want to see you go away forever. I saw a beautiful thing, a YouTube video, a young Jewish couple getting married, and of course he's currently been called up. He's in uniform,
Reserves, yeah.
and it was the whole wedding party was arriving in like
At the
Humvees.
battlefield, yeah. Yes, I saw
And
it.
yet everybody's dancing and carrying on. A couple of old men are out there doing the dance. So for them to maintain their spirit, their tenacity in the face of all this, I just hope, it reminds me of the spirit that the Americans had when Pearl Harbor got attacked. Whole classes of college students, and in some cases high school students, went and lied about their age, signed up. In the Ivy League even. Imagine they would sign up today, but I don't know if they'd sign up for our side. But it's just amazing to see that kind of spirit and that kind of
Yes,
perseverance.
Correct. But I want to remind you that the first thing and the most important thing that we need to pay attention to, that we paid attention only for a couple of seconds in the instance of 9/11 and the instance of October 7th. 9/11, people did not pay attention close enough to the celebration of Palestinians in the street of Manhattan. Wait,
agree.
it's beyond horrific. Now, if I was to be a president, anybody, Palestinians or any other person that enjoying the privileges of this wonderful country of ours, they will celebrate in the streets when these towers are coming down. They will go to jail. They will never see the light of day ever in their lives. And in the same token, after October 7th, you know how many locations in the world people celebrated and gave candy away? What are they celebrating? Yeah. Slaughtering babies? Killing grandpas and grandmas? What are they doing? Taking babies and putting them in ovens, literally in ovens.
And you're not seeing any media coverage of that either.
So you want to ask yourself, how come we just let it fly by? Especially 9/11. How come it was there and we were saying, what the heck, and then a minute later we forgot about it?
No, we didn't.
And we didn't do anything about it.
No,
Do you think these people were addressed
no,
and arrested?
we didn't forget about it.
But
The media.
But how come the authorities were not there to arrest these people right away on the spot?
There was one incident where a cop saw they were young kids, they were on the street, I think it was near Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, and they were jumping up and down, and he got so pissed off that he whacked one of them, and he got in trouble. Let me explain to you why the American
In
people.
an orderly fashion, I mean, not just like.
Oh, no, he was.
No, I'm saying the authorities should have gone in an orderly
they should have.
fashion and do their job. That's it.
Or, no, you can't, if somebody wants to jump up and down about something stupid, you probably, under the First Amendment, can't, no,
Oh
let
my
me
God.
finish.
Give me a
You
break,
can't,
Reggie.
here's why people are no longer outraged by that, Haim. Because number one, the media now denies that it happened. They deny that it happened. And which it
They
did.
had their chance. That's what I mean. They missed that chance.
They didn't miss it. They deliberately hid it because they don't want that narrative out there. Whether it's because the Saudis own half the news, or they contribute so much money to these universities. I don't know what their motive is, other than suicidal form of stupidity. Because to deny that these people live among us, people who celebrate events like that, live among us, and not bring attention to them, that's a deliberate thing. If you go, I tell you what, when the show's over, go to your computer and Google pictures of people celebrating 9/11. You won't see anything. No, by the way, I want to get one light.
But one thing, just because I want to complete it, because you got me going. The thing is this. Forget about jail. Forget about confiscating people and putting them behind bars. You come to these groups of people that celebrate and dance after 9/11, and it was the day of 9/11, and you come to them and you say, you that come to this country for a good reason that you spelled out, for freedom, for the privileges and the wonderful lifestyle and life that you get here, and you behave like this, you plain and simple my enemy. So I'm going to take you and take you across the border and show you the way out and say, hey, be well, we don't need you here. This is plain and simple the only way to address it. This is accepting people that are actually our enemies to become citizens, to give them all the rights and all this, and just take it for granted that that's the way it's supposed to be. And you know what? There's not even a willingness in place. Forget about action, just willingness. So you can express it verbally and say, this will not be tolerated, we're going to do something about it, and indeed do something about it.
Americans are inundated by the 24/7 news cycle. And unless you continually remind, when I was a kid growing up, I was born in 1943. So by the time I was conscious of watching, and then they would show things and talk about things and go make movies, it was about World War II. It was about Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, you saw some recreation of Pearl Harbor very frequently, just to remind you of what a terrible day that was. You never see what you're talking about anymore. I just want to remind you about an idea I told you about a couple of weeks ago, an idea that I want to you're going to help me sell these in Israel, my new T-shirt. Imagine what Jews could do with 25 miles of Mediterranean waterfront. It's funny, but
read the poem.
It's funny because
it's a great time to read the poem.
It's funny because it's true. Right?
So
It would be Monte Carlo by the bay.
But I hope that you will focus on the fact that there are groups here that will behave and they won't try to hide their hatred for our country. And then we want to treat them as citizens, and so we'll come back to our senses and we'll say, you know what, you're not welcome here, and we'll show you the way out.
You don't have.
I don't care if you're independent, Democrat, or Republican.
You don't
tell me where do I do wrong by thinking this way?
You don't have to convince me.
How do I go wrong by thinking this way? I want to know.
Why aren't people
Reflect.
continually hammering them on it? Because it's just been shown again on TV. Why did they do that? Let's find a way to deal with them. But they're still there. And the people who were preaching then are still preaching hatred now. This is a poem that Haim and I have read at the end of every show we did when I was doing his show. And so I felt it appropriate to read it now. This is a poem written by a man named Dennis McCarthy, who was a high school teacher in Boston around the turn of the 20th century, about 1900. It's called "This is the Land Where Hate Should Die." This is the land where hate should die. No feuds of faith, no spleen of race, no darkly brooding fear should try beneath our flag to find a place. Yes, every people here has sent its sons to answer freedom's call. Their lifeblood is the strong cement that builds and binds the nation's wall. This is the land where hate should die. Though dear to me my faith and shrine, I serve my country well when I respect beliefs that are not mine. He little loves his land who'd cast upon his neighbor's word a doubt, or cite the wrongs of ages past from present rights to bar him out. This is the land where hate should die. This is the land where strife should cease, where foul, suspicious fear should flee before our flag of light and peace. Then let us purge from poisoned thought that service to the state we give, and so be worthy as we ought of this great land in which we live. I mean, I think that's a beautiful poem. There's never been a better time for it to be.
Good job, Reggie.
be,
Very good.
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, I think we need to hear that kind of language, because what I love about this country is not the fact that I was born here, but the more I discover about the institutions and our values, the principles upon which we are based. All men are created equal. I mean, you can't. Individual liberty is what counts. If an individual is not free, if he's in chains for the wrong reason, for no good reason,
Yeah.
then none of us is free.
Yeah. But again, I wish you luck, and I think you will be a great addition to LTV's producers, and this show will be a great addition to what is available out for our community.
I hope you're
Really.
right.
Don't despair. Now and then, if you want to invite me again to sober you up and to clean your system by announcing to you that you're actually doing a great job, then please,
Oh, well,
by all means.
I certainly will appreciate your input, although I think I don't have to worry about you giving it to me.
No, I'll be following LTV now.
We should say, thank you.
Thank you very much. Really,
Thank
really.
you. It's always
really
fun.
So are we out, or we have a few more minutes?
It says
or-
0, I don't know.